Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for your support of Indie Agency News. And let's meet an indie agency. We're going to the home team. We're also going to the quasi-home team. Trish and Mark, Opinionated, Kyle O'Brien, managing editor, Indie Agency News. We decided that we're all here, so we all might as well talk.
Sure. Why not?
Now, when I say home team, a couple things here. Opinionated is in Indie Agency News HQ, Portland, Oregon. Kyle O'Brien lived here. Yes, that's damn right. Damn straight. And then Kyle was here for a couple decades.
Yep.
And and that's where we first met, these many years ago, 2000. So we've known each other a quarter of a century. Wow, that sounds really, that is a long, I mean, technically it is a long time. So
I thought we weren't going to be discussing ages on this call.
What was that, Mark?
I thought we were not going to be discussing ages on this call.
We weren't discussing your ages.
Chronological.
We were discussing our ages. You're always a scrappy 41 to me. All right.
I am 36. Yes.
All right. So here's the skinny. I've known both of you for a very long time, but the rest of the world may not know you. So this is a chance for us to get to know you. Ergo, the title, Meet an Indie Agency. I want to start with a little bit of the background of the agency, and then what you're best known for. Let's kick off with that, the backstory, and then what you're known for.
Sure. I wish we had a well thought out and crafted origin story. I suspect, however, that while it is none of that, it is a common one. And in that, I was at Widen+Kennedy here in Portland for 20 years. It's where I worked for almost all of those years with Trish and a few others here at Opinionated. Circumstances abruptly changed, shall we say.
Sure.
And I became one of those senior creatives that became kind of a movement to leave longtime bigger agencies and wonder about how to continue the career. And I had a family that loved Portland, Oregon. I thought briefly about relocating, and I'm not a really freelancer by nature. I love agency culture. I love being in large organizations and groups working together. And here it is, the big plan. By default, I started Opinionated without a whole lot of other options left to me. And, I think in hindsight, that was a perfectly fine way to start the agency because it was hitting the ground running with a couple of old friends who had grown up and become chief marketing officers at companies and who were looking for agencies and had asked me for that process and advice on how to do it. And instead I said, would you give me a shot at putting something together? And away we went. And that was in 2017.
Wow.
So we've been doing this for almost 8 years. And, very quickly I kind of built the model by doing. I think I had some noble aspirations about trying to do things radically differently. Like, for example, staying small and nimble and building a place for freelancers to have homes, sort of, and to get healthcare, and looked into that process. And holy crap, that would have been really complicated and not very financially sustainable. So we moved on from that model. But all the while, just doing the things that we knew how to do really well, which was, and this became, I think, what we're known for, which was to, rather than do kind of stunty or maybe in the moment buzzworthy work per se, but to do kind of the work that bigger agencies were doing and what we had done for so many years at Widen, which was to take any kind of assignment we got, whether it was, certainly in the early years, it was, let's say some less than A grade brands.
Oh, yeah.
But to treat them with kind of the deep thought and strategic insight that we had learned how to work on Coca-Cola and Nike.
Hold on one sec. I'm getting a hiss.
I hear that.
Is that you or me? That was weird.
I think it was Trish.
It wasn't me. I was being quiet. I don't hiss.
Yeah.
Often.
Sometimes when she's really upset, she'll just hiss. It's weird.
Excuse me. I had brisket for lunch. Go back to, so you went into, that's what we're best known for. So.
Yeah. So I think simply because this is what we had been doing for so long was we had the luxury of working on larger global clients with, interesting, complicated challenges, multiple business units, multiple audience groups and stuff like that. And we had the luxury of working on those types of brands long term. So, they were AORs and we didn't know any different. We didn't think about the ends of projects or the limitations of scopes. We didn't think about it more as like contractors might. We thought about it as brand stewards, as like, okay, I'm in this Nike thing as much as Rob DeFlorio or any of our other later clients are in this thing. And, P&G was so, instrumental in my understanding of this business. And I knew that I think they had a formal title for it, which was like brand agency lead. But that's all I knew how to do, was to think of the brand as my responsibility and my stewardship of it, and to dress it up in the most interesting, thought-provoking, and frankly opinionated clothing outfit that I could come up with. And it came in the form of creativity and advertising. So out of almost naivete, like you imagine that coming with that attitude to a project that's going to last a month and a half and you're getting paid, $75,000 and you have nobody to do it. It's like, they just didn't fit.
Right.
But over time they started to fit. And I think that over time, even those smaller companies and those smaller projects, they appreciated that we were coming at it with this kind of long-term.
Yogi T was one of them, I remember.
Yogi T.
That was one
Shout
of our
out to the
first,
locals.
I think that may have been our first new business.
It was the first.
One.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Fascinating company.
It really
Founded
is.
by a real yogi.
In Eugene.
Eugene. Yeah.
Yogi Budgeon.
Yeah.
Not founded by the Bhagwan.
No.
To be clear, it's not.
I think that's still on Netflix. So Trish, let's move over to what you believe the top 3 core strengths and the solutions you provide for brands and for marketers. Every agency has, a fairly long list, let's be honest, right? But there are usually a few that rise to the top. What would you say are the top 3?
Yeah, well, one of them, I think Mark kind of already touched on, which is sort of this obsession with brand stewardship. And really, it's just such a part of our DNA that we don't know how to do it in any different way. But we really dig into clients' business. We have strong partnerships with all of our clients, and we always start with a big idea. And we may have talked about this with you before, Doug, but this notion of a brand opinion and trying to come up with a statement that, is somewhat provocative, but really positions the brand in the marketplace. And regardless of whether it's a project client or a longstanding client, we always start with that kind of rigor right from the beginning. And there's a lot of strategic thinking that goes into the work that we do. So that's probably the first one.
You know who loves opinionated? Brand archivists. The nerdy librarians who are at these big companies who have these horrible little offices in the basement where they keep everything.
Yeah.
We always go to the archives and just nerd the hell out on these companies. And inevitably we find these themes that have been true well before a lot of the current kind of brand managers and marketing directors have done their stewardship.
Right.
And you see these patterns that are kind of interwoven into the cultural fabric. And that's sorry to interrupt, but I think that's an example, a 5-point example of how we're different.
You're demonstrating the obsession.
Yes.
It's all good.
Mark tends to get a little excited about things.
He does in a good way. And I think the second one would probably be just creating really big idea creative platforms, because not all the work that we've done does that, because sometimes you get a client that just comes to us because they want to do a particular thing or a stunt or whatever, but we're not big believers in that. We're kind of really big believers in creating a platform that endures over time and then becomes a touch point for the brand, so that no matter what you're executing, it all kind of builds equity over time. So I think we're really well known for that, and that's a big strength of ours given our past lives. And
I think from a marketer's perspective, what that really means is differentiation. So it's differentiation in the work itself. It's differentiation that the whole organization can really get kind of internalize themselves. Because as you guys know, the role of the agency to influence the overall brand it's just getting narrower and narrower. So what we want to create is influence, so that the work we do travels around an organization. It creates clear differentiation, especially in some of the categories that we work in, like CPG and that sort of thing, where it's tough to tell the difference between, don't quote us, even though we're recording on Coke and Pepsi and things like that. So like, it's like really understanding that differentiation is really powerful.
What you mean quick cut and influencer is not cutting it? I mean,
but it is true, because I think when we work with brands and we're really firing on all cylinders, whatever the brand idea is that we come up with is something that they take internally, and internal teams use it. You know, in an ideal world, they're thinking about that when they're developing new products, and it influences all the marketing that they're doing, not just necessarily the advertising. So that's when we know we're doing a good job, when clients are embracing it in that kind of way.
Yeah, no, that I was going to say, because, you know, I look at something like Drumstick and I'm like, oh God, they must be having fun with this internally too.
Yeah,
they definitely are.
Yeah, and you see it in their social work, because I'm trying to think off the top of my head, all of our clients have some level of internal creative resource. So how are we being good partners with them and giving them stuff that they can run with, so that from the outside it looks like a really integrated campaign? Yeah,
I think we give them a lot of building blocks and materials that they can then take and do their own thing with as well, and that's important.
Yeah, and that's a thing we don't necessarily talk enough about, is that the work that we do as agencies, it really does cross into this area. It's like, yeah, you're you know, obviously if it's for consumers, it's obviously that's the thing. Yet the momentum that gets built when stakeholders / employees / teams get a chance to see that, go, oh, this is how this brand can behave. That's kind of good. Kyle, you're up next.
Yes, and let's get to the indie aspect of it, but let's see that lovely website of yours. Doesn't that look nice?
Please don't crash. Please don't crash. Please don't crash. Please don't crash.
Yeah, that would be a bummer.
I'll take it down. I'll take it down. But it looks so nice. And I love the logo. But let's, you know, you both work for indie agency, obviously one of the biggest indie agencies. Why was it important for you to stay indie?
I mean, I can start and you can jump in if you want, but I mean, I'm sure this is an answer that everybody gives, but it's like, we don't, just the relief from pressure of having to deal with shareholders and being able to do what's right, not just for the agency, but for our clients and their brands, is probably the most important aspect of being independent. And I was thinking about this last night, actually. Like, I've never worked for an agency that's anything but, so it's just so sort of human nature that's just the way that I think both of us are wired. So yeah, it's really kind of even hard to imagine what it would be like to not be independent. And, you know, we're able to be really nimble and reactive, and also proactive, you know, in doing the things that we think are right for clients' businesses. So
yeah, I don't think either of us are terribly anti-authoritarian, like by nature. So I don't think it's about that. I do think that there's a big advantage to it, and that is that marketing and creativity in particular thrives on simplicity. That seems to be, you know, a common agreed upon bit of knowledge. And yet the industry, like at every turn, is under threat by complexity. Everything is about making simple act more complex. And thank you, Silicon Valley, my hometown included, is contributing to that.
Yeah.
But when you're independent, you remove a fair, you know, maybe let's call it 10% of complexity that an owned agency already has to deal with. So if we're all body blocking complexity at every turn, it's a much bigger task at an owned company, at a publicly traded company for sure, or any where it's someone else. And Doug, you and I have talked about the definition of an independent agency. I won't get too much into that argument.
We're trying to
tell you there is no one
we got a little you know.
There's not a dime in Opinionated from any source other than what you're looking at on this call. So to me, that is as independent as it's
fine. Yeah, I'm not going to argue with you.
No. And,
and
but
I,
how does that translate to your clients? I mean, your clients obviously are looking for someone who can do the job well, but are they also looking for that level of dealing with you personally and not having to go through hey, there's a junior copywriter,
right? And the other thing I would add to this is this feeds into the next question, which is what is the main reason a brand should work with you?
Right.
I mean, I think that's part of it, but what would you say the main reason is?
I think what Kyle talked about is definitely at the top of the list, which is that, clients get access to really I'm going to say experienced, because, the alternative is people have been around the block for a really long time, but we don't want to talk about that. But like, seriously, a lot of experience, not just in terms of years in the business, but like the brands that we've worked on and the types of, business problems that we've solved. So they get direct access to senior people here. But then there's such a group of like amazing, really smart young people as well, who are up to speed on all the trends that are happening in the industry and kind of keep us on our toes. And that combination of talent, I think, is really important for clients. And it's one of the reasons that they come here, because they can still talk to the people who are running the agency. They know they're going to get some thoughtful attention from the founders and the principals here.
Speaking of talent, why should talent be putting the agency on their list?
Another good question. You're just on fire, Doug.
Everybody the same question, so you don't.
I mean, I think it's because of the opportunities that they get here. We are still relatively small versus some of our brethren, in the industry. And so that means that every person gets a shot at working on business and really contributing in a big way. I mean, we have mini agency structure where people are running big pieces of business. And, they get opportunities to not only have that contact with clients, but also to be really prolific in the work that they're putting out. I know for me at Widen, like when I worked on some accounts there, it could be a year before you ever got to produce anything.
Right.
And here it's like we're constantly producing. Young people are getting to make work. They're building their portfolios. And so I'm kind of answering two questions in one, but
that's all right.
Yeah, I think that's why talent comes here, because they get access to people they can learn from as well, which is
I think
key.
the mentorship thing is we take very seriously and frankly personally. We were talking before you hit record about my son who's fresh out of school and in his first job. It is a apocalyptic landscape out there if you are graduating college and interested in this industry. And it's not just because the jobs are hard to get, but because once you get there is no layer of kind of, middle management, call it, or junior creative directors and account directors that are tasked with and provided the resources and bandwidth to train and raise the next generation of leaders. And I look at our former employer and the folks that I had in the creative department or who are my peers there. We could rattle off like a murderer's row of all-stars, and not a one of them is managing talent in an agency. They are all freelancing. They're making great money and doing great work, but none of them are teaching the next generation how to do what we do. And I think it's like we have yet to see the blowback of that missed generation of leadership. And Opinionated is doing a hard thing, which is
not if we have something to say about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Amen.
Obviously your talent plays into the people you have at your agency. And so do you consider yourselves as an agency or individually?
Oh, no, don't do that. Just start with the agency. No,
all right. As the agency.
Mark will go so far off the fucking rails. Yeah. Oh, Jesus. All right. Go.
Weirdos, misfits, or underdogs.
Weirdos, misfits, or underdogs. What is Opinionated?
You're right, Doug. You know me well. I would have probably gone more off the rails if this is like personal, but I'll either be like annoying on the agency front and say, I think we're too diverse to pick one of those.
You got to lean towards one. Come on. So here's
okay. We're underdogs, and you know why?
that tracks.
Jeez. We're underdogs because the other two, I think, Trish and I were both in student council, and we're not weird enough or misfit enough to feel comfortable with those
little on the
labels.
straight and narrow.
Yeah. But we're very ambitious, and I think any good year we still unfortunately suffer from that insecurity of like, but why not this other thing? Why weren't we recognized for this other thing, or why aren't we great at this other thing? So we will have the best year yet, and we will say we still have something to prove.
Sure.
And that's just how we're programmed.
Good position.
Yeah, no, I get that. I totally get that. I was student council president as well. So but then
that's why we like her.
Yeah, straight and narrow. No. Yeah.
I was in the jazz band. I was in the jazz band, which is basically the same thing.
Yeah.
Jazz band. Thank you.
Jazz band. Yeah. After that, it didn't take. Whether they are a current client or not, who's a CMO or marketer you want to say hello to?
Well, I guess we could answer that two ways. One is old friends that we haven't seen in a while. So I'll start with one of those, and I will say howdy do to my Oest of G partners in crime, Alex Keith at P&G, who is way above the rank of CMO at this point. She's the president of their global beauty and personal care businesses there, but she has had as much impact on my career, possibly second only to the woman to my left. But she's wonderful, and I always want to say hi to her, even if she's too busy to write me back sometimes.
Oh Jesus!
I'll shout out to I might shout out to a current client, Emily Silver, only because it's been a little while since we've seen her as well, because she's been really busy. But Emily, Emily Silver.
Yeah, where?
Dick's Sporting Goods, and we met Emily working with her at Pepsi in the innovation group there, and we did some projects with her, and then she moved on to Dick's, and we reconnected, and she's a big part of the reason why we're doing great work for them. So yeah. Hi, Emily.
Yeah, I do like that work, and that's a tough category. Like when it's, you know what it's. So Kyle and I were both in radio, so I did a shit ton of tier 3 auto. So Dick's Sporting Goods is sort of that tier 2, like we're selling this whole thing, but then they might be co-branded with Adidas or whomever. But you've managed to wiggle it out of like predictability, and it's excellent. It's really, really good work. So
thanks. We love working with that brand, and it's fun.
And really good people.
Yeah, super
close friends.
Yeah. Amy as well. Shout out to Amy.
Amy Waters.
Yeah, she's awesome.
We should on behalf of Chief Growth Officer Kate Higgins, who would want us to shout out people we don't know or haven't seen in a while.
Please do. Yeah.
I'm going to give a shout out and hello to an old friend, Doug Sweeney at Aura, who was my client at Levi's long ago. And I think our head of new business, Kate, has a professional crush on Doug.
And maybe I'll do one as well, which is Stacy Taffet, who also was a Pepsi client who's moved on to Hershey, and we've been trying to reach out to her. So Stacy, if you see this, pick up the phone.
Oh God, that's funny. Well, we'll probably tag her on the LinkedIn. Listen, Mark, Trish, thank you so much for supporting this. You're one of the OG members of this thing, and of course, I love it when we can keep it in the Pacific Northwest, in Portland in particular. But you keep on keeping on, and I love the fact that you're waving the flag for Portland, because there are a lot of great agencies here, and it's nice to see us poke our head above the sand from time to time. So
proud of the community too, and you guys are doing a great job, both for the town and also for the community of indie agencies.
I appreciate it. Well, listen, like I said, keep on keeping on, and thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks,
You're
guys.
so welcome. Thanks for having us. Really appreciate it.